Greetings everyone. This is a quick promo before the video begins. If you're new to the channel and you didn't know it yet, I am actually an author in addition to being a YouTuber, and I have 2 books that you can get on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1 and The Occult Mafia. The first is sort of a bizarre, absurdist kaiju anime mashup, and the other is a horror noir story with a hint of a western thrown in there. They're both set in the same universe, and at this point have received mostly positive reviews, so you might want to check them out. I've provided Amazon links for both of them down in the description. They're both available in either paperback or Amazon Kindle, and Operation Red Dragon is also available in audiobook form. So if either of these strike your fancy and you want to support a struggling artist, feel free to go down and check out either one or both of them. Alright, the shameless self-promotion is out of the way, we can get on with the video. Thank you all for your support. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni viewer, and after a very long dry period, there's more Godzilla vs. Kong news that finally came out. And it's something that some people were saying was inevitable, and other people are wondering whether or not it's a good sign or a bad sign. The news is that apparently Netflix has made a sizable financial offer to have Godzilla vs. Kong stream on their platform. And by sizable offer, I mean covering almost all but a small percentage of the movie's budget. That is how much they are offering. I'm not sure how Netflix is able to offer that much, considering that their company has been kind of in a complete downward spiral ever since they released a certain movie, which shall remain nameless, if I can ever hack into their mainframe and delete the files. But either way, that's the news that's coming out so far. And of course, that comes with other news that HBO Max, where most Time Warner Media is going these days, is going to make a counter-offer of some sort. So, apparently there's gonna be a bidding war, if there isn't one already in progress. But all we know so far is that Netflix has made that offer. But a Warner Brothers representative has also come forward and said that they don't intend to not release the movie in theaters. They still intend to stand by their theatrical release dates. And you can see that actually playing out with their Wonder Woman 1984 release. You see a lot of pieces out there that are saying Wonder Woman 1984 going straight to HBO Max is either a surefire sign that the movie is going to flop, or that it's just one more nail in the coffin for movie theaters. Completely missing, of course, that Wonder Woman 1984 is releasing in theaters at the same time it's going to streaming. Personally, that tells me that Warner Brothers isn't so much making the direct shift from theaters to streaming, but more so that they're testing the waters. Other people have pointed out that the reason we're now seeing so many movies that got moved now going into a place where they are doing a simultaneous theatrical or streaming release, or just an exclusive streaming release, is because these movies were financed largely by companies investing in them. That's where product placement comes from in cinema. And eventually they're gonna want their money back. And in order for the studio to give them their money back, or rather the term should be pay their money back, without losing money themselves, they've got to release the movie somehow, which is why you're seeing that happen. Now, again, I don't necessarily think this is a clear-cut one medium to the other sort of thing. It seems to me like Warner Brothers is dipping its toe in the water, certainly, but isn't necessarily ready to commit all the way to streaming. Because streaming just isn't going to work for big budget movies. Even the people who've been saying that streaming is the way of the future and movie theaters are dinosaurs that are destined for extinction have pointed out that if the movie theaters die, so do the big budget blockbusters. Because there's just no way, at this point at least, for big budget blockbusters to go direct to streaming and turn a profit. If Avengers Endgame had released directly to streaming, I guarantee you it would not have broken $1 billion. It still probably would have done really well, but it wouldn't have been as profitable. Because, I mean, think about it. Avengers Endgame released before all that lockdown business happened. If it had gone straight to streaming, that means you would have had a bunch of people gathering at houses to have watch parties, where only one person has to pay a fee in order for all of those people to have seen Avengers Endgame. And all those people who saw it at that person's house are under no obligation to pay for it again to watch it at their own homes. Of course, these are different times, but even so, it's still a risk for a big budget movie like Wonder Woman or Godzilla vs. Kong or really any of those kind of movies to go direct to streaming. And most of the movies that we know have done well by going direct to streaming are movies that haven't necessarily had those gigantic budgets. They're movies that were smaller budgeted, not necessarily low budget or no budget movies, but they didn't cost hundreds of millions of dollars, at least not as many hundreds of millions of dollars. So I think the only reason Warner Brothers would even be considering putting Godzilla vs. Kong on Netflix would be because the offer is covering so much of the budget that anything else that's left over they can make up easily in some form. So what does that mean, though? Does it mean it's actually happening? Well, let's not forget, the Warner Brothers representatives have said that they're going to stick by their theatrical releases. At least at this point. What that tells me is that the deals for streaming, whether it's just Netflix or it's a bidding war between Netflix and HBO Max, that's not set in stone. It is being considered, certainly, and depending on how things trend in the immediate future, it might wind up being the only option, but I don't necessarily think it's a hard thing yet. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen. And it doesn't necessarily mean that movie theaters are going extinct either. Right now, all we know for certain is that nothing is for certain. It's on the table, it's being considered. A lot of things are being considered for a direct-to-streaming at this point because, like I said, the movie theaters have to start making money again, not just so they can sustain themselves, but so they can pay back the people that they basically took loans from. So they've got to consider those options. Eventually, though, restrictions are going to be lifted, people will be able to go out freely again, and when that happens, are they necessarily going to want to continue staying inside just to stream everything? I mean, I've already said that I think one thing which will keep movie theaters alive potentially is that once people are able to go about unrestricted again, they're going to want to go on dates if they're not already seeing someone, or if they have been seeing someone but weren't able to see them for a long time. And movie theaters are one of the top 3 locations for a date. But even so, there is a lot of uncertainty at this point. Now, people have been saying that Godzilla vs. Kong would get dumped to streaming for a while now, even before there wound up being restrictions on life. And they were saying it back then because the movie kept getting pushed back, we still weren't getting a trailer, and people were saying that was because Warner Brothers had no faith in the movie and they were just going to quietly place it on a platform that most people considered to be a dumping ground, basically. Nowadays, of course, streaming is trying to prove that it's not just a dumping ground. And it hasn't really done that too well, if you ask me, because the vast majority of stuff that has been released that's gotten any sort of press on streaming hasn't exactly been very good. I mean, who out there is openly going to admit that they like the live-action Mulan? But I don't know. It seems more like this is being considered simply because the clock is ticking, bills need to be paid, promises need to be kept, and it's a pretty good offer, albeit from a platform that's really not in good standing with the public at this point. That being said, though, we don't have anything that's certain yet. We don't know that it's going to streaming. We don't know that it's not going to theaters. All we know is that an offer has been made. Same thing with the latest James Bond movie, unless that changed when I wasn't looking, because I don't really follow what's going on with No Time to Die. But at this point, all we know is that the offer has been made. Whether or not the offer will be taken, and whether or not circumstances will get to a point where the offer may not be needed anymore, that remains to be seen. At this point, we simply do not know. Things are changing out there. The world is going to get to a point where the restrictions will no longer be a factor, or certainly they won't be as great of a factor. But we will see. I'll keep my eye on it. This is only something that people have noted is taking place. It's being considered. A consideration doesn't necessarily mean that anything is definite yet. So keep that in mind going forward. The offer has been made, but the offer has not been accepted. And that's the important thing. We will see what happens. So yeah, it's a bit of news, but it's nothing really groundbreaking. Godzilla vs. Kong could wind up on a different platform if the offer is accepted, or if there's another offer that's even better. But that's a lot of ifs and coulds and maybes. There's nothing solid to go on yet. And that's about all we can say for certain at this point. There's your update. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.
If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Like and subscribe, then go down to the description to find links to follow us on DeviantArt, Patreon, and Twitter. While you're there, you'll also find the Amazon links for the original novels Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, and The Occult Mafia. 2 books I think you'll really enjoy. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.